Blue Lock, for those who are unfamiliar, is one of the most popular manga in the world right now. In fact, it was the top-selling manga of 2023. With 10.8 million volumes sold, it was more popular than the super smash hit Jujutsu Kaisen, and even outsold the god of manga itself, One Piece. Now, the premise behind this cultural phenomenon, which has since been adapted into a hit anime series, is that Japan hires a mad genius, Igo Jinpachi, to head up a program with the goal of turning Japan's high school players into a golden generation that'll be able to challenge for a World Cup. He does this by having them participate in a Squid Games-like series of elimination games, weeding out the weak in the hopes that from this football battle royale, talents will emerge with enough killer instinct that they'll become the world's best striker and lead Japan to a World Cup win. It's a series that, for all its popularity, has been met with a fair amount of criticism, with many saying that the plot can often be so absurd that it goes beyond the realm of believability. For example, there's a point in the series, and this is a slight spoiler for Season 1 of Blue Lock, so you've been warned, but at one point in the story, Igo hires a group of elite professional footballers to play against high school kids, and he somehow expects these teens, whose nuts just dropped, to compete with world-class footballers. I ask you, what high school team on Earth, let alone Japan, wouldn't just get smashed into dust if they played a top-flight professional side? Surely nothing like this could happen in real life, right? But when I tell you that some crazy Blue Lock bullshit went down in Japan in 2003, I'm not messing with you, because this video is about maybe the craziest underdog story to happen to a professional football team this millennium. Wilder than Leicester winning the league, crazier than what Girona is doing in La Liga right now. No, what happened in the 2003 Emperor's Cup is the stuff of folklore, a series of events that defies logic and reason, and something that we will never see again in our lifetime. This is the story of when a group of high schoolers took on the champions of Japan and embarrassed them. Before we get into that, real quick, I need to pay my rent. Hey guys, your number one fat Asian. With the New Year's here, I'm trying to say the skinny Asian, but doing the only thing that's ever worked for me. Keto, low carb, which is why I love Factor meal plans. Hey you, come here. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. You know that New Year's resolution about working out every day? Well, that's not gonna mean diddly poop if you don't eat right. Because working out is hard, and you're still busy with school and work, and after the workout, all your willpower's sapped, which makes you more susceptible to the temptation of the quick and often overpriced takeout food. But that is where Factor meal plans comes in to save your gains, bro. Because cooking, counting macros, going to the grocery store. With Factor, your pro dietitians do all that shit for you, which leaves you more time and energy to actually go to the gym. Just put in your weekly order, and Factor will deliver fresh, delicious, never frozen meals right to your door. Every time you're feeling a bit peckish, go ahead, poke a few holes in that bitch, microwave for 3 minutes, and you're eating. And you're eating nutritious and delicious. And even if you want to treat yourself every once in a while, why not indulge in a little gourmet plus? Get yourself a little surf and turf, or my personal favorite, the truffle filet mignon. For a fraction of what you would be paying on Uber Eats, you could be eating truffle filet mignon. It's no contest. So if you want to protect your gains in the new year, then you owe it to yourself to try out at least one box of Factor. So please, head over to factor75.com and use the code FATAsian50 at checkout to get 50% off your first box. The link is in the top of the doobly-doo. Once again, that is factor75.com, and use the code FATAsian50 at checkout. Thank you once again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the show. Now let me explain. Japanese football have their own version of the FA Cup, known as the Emperor's Cup. This is a prestigious and long-running competition that dates back all the way to 1921. Like the FA Cup, it allows teams from different divisions to face off in a knockout-style tournament to determine who is the best club in their country. But there's one major difference. Unlike England, Japan allows non-professional teams to compete in their tournament, which also includes colleges, universities, and yes, even high school teams are allowed to enter the Emperor's Cup. Of course, they have to qualify, which is no small feat. These schools have to win their regional tournament in order to earn a spot in the big show. And while it's not uncommon for college teams to qualify, the participation of high schools is extremely rare, as they would not only have to beat older, more physically developed players from universities, but they would also have to beat semi-professional teams and even pro clubs in their region. Still, it's not unheard of. Actually, in 1927, Kobe-Ichi Junior High School Club won the entire freaking thing. Yes, a fucking junior high team won Japan's version of the FA Cup one time. Look it up. But then again, that was in 1927, a time when most of the organized football clubs in the country were centered around high schools and colleges. Surely nothing like that could ever happen in modern Japan, where they've raised up a national team that regularly dominates the Asian region and even beat many of the top powerhouse nations of the world. Surely, a nation with such prominence for the game and a respectable pro league couldn't allow something like a high school team winning their Premier Cup competition, right? Right? Well, let's set the stage here. In a single game elimination tournament, no matter the opponent, upsets are aplenty. In fact, as recently as 2017, a Kaoru Matoma-led university team made it all the way to the round of 16, knocking off YSCC Yokohama and Vejelta Sendai, two professional teams that play in Japan's top flight, the J-League. And a side note, when I first read Vejelta Sendai, I was massively disappointed to find out that it wasn't Vegeta Senpai. But life is full of disappointments. My point being is that crazy underdog upsets are what define the Emperor's Cup, the FA Cup, and other cups of the same ilk. That's the appeal. You can see some lower tier team stick it to the Real Madrids of the world. But for as many Wrexhams knocking off Manchester Uniteds, you get 100 more Man Cities 7-0ing a Rotterdam. But I mean, could you even imagine what would happen if you let Manchester City play a university team? Let alone a high school team? There would be San Marino levels of slaughter. Make it happen, FA. You cowards. Do it! And as I mentioned before, a high school team in Japan can get the privilege of being absolutely eviscerated in the butthole by a J-League side if they can qualify by winning their prefecture's tournament. And that is exactly what Funabashi Municipal High School did in 2023, when they won the regional cup for the Chiba Prefecture, beating all their local semi-pro and university teams to qualify for the Emperor's Cup. It was an incredible accomplishment even to make it into this tournament. As make no mistake about it, this is no Mickey Mouse Cup that the J-League teams don't care about. In fact, the winner of the Emperor's Cup earns themselves an automatic spot in the AFC Champions League, Asia's version of the UEFA Champions League. Funabashi High had shocked the world just to get in and were rewarded with being drawn up against Thespa Kusatsu, a semi-pro side that had just earned promotion to Japan's third tier. Basically, think of them as the AFC Wimbledon of Japan. The match began with the high schoolers as astronomical underdogs, but they somehow scraped and clawed their way to an ugly yet glorious 1-0 victory over the third-tier side. In the second round of the tournament, they drew a slightly easier matchup in Henan University, who were a fellow regional tournament winner, having won the Osaka Prefecture. Heavy underdogs again, Funabashi were able to best their fellow student-athlete counterparts, winning once again by a scoreline of 1-0. At this point, you probably have to stop saying that it was all pure luck. These high school kids were being full grown-ass men consistently. They had to have some legit talent on the roster in order to get this far. And with hindsight being 2020, we can see that post-time skip, half of this Funabashi high school team would go on to play professionally, with two of their players representing the country at the youth level, and another was considered being called up to represent Northern Ireland. It's safe to say that they had a couple of child prodigies on their team, which would make them literally the Blue Lock high school team of their time. And what I'm about to say is purely hypothetical. I'm not saying that anyone on this Funabashi team was near the level of the player I'm about to mention. This is purely a hypothetical question. But if you put a 16-year-old Messi on a high school team and had them play against Reading, who would you put your money on? Leave it in the comments down below. But anyway, by this point, Funabashi were on top of the world. They had never thought that they would make it this far and couldn't wait for their next opponent, because the third round of the Emperor's Cup is where things get kicked up to an entirely different level, as this was the round where the J-League teams entered the chat. Now, all J-League teams automatically qualify for the Emperor's Cup and receive a bye till the third round. All the while, the lower tier teams and semi-professional sides have to battle it out to even earn a spot in the bracket with the big boys. If a minnow does emerge from the Battle Royale, they actually pray to be matched up against one of the giants of Japan. And they don't pray to be matched up against one of the big boys because they believe they can beat one of Japan's top flight. No, they just want the story that they could tell their grandkids one day that they had the chance to get absolutely decimated by one of the biggest teams in their country. And Funabashi were no different. And when the draw came out, Funabashi's prayers were answered. They were not just drawn up against one of the giants of Japan, they were drawn up against the reigning champions of Japan, Yokohama F. Marinos, the most storied franchise in J-League history. They've been champions of Japan 7 times. They won the Emperor's Cup 7 times and won Asia's Champions League twice, making them one of the most successful clubs in Japanese history, and one of only 2 teams to have competed in Japan's top flight since its inception. The club is based out of Kanagawa Prefecture, which is part of the Greater Tokyo area and was founded by the owner of Nissan Motors. They aren't just any old champion. They are an institution of Japanese football. And this was no plucky squad that got lucky the year before and happened to win the league. No, this was a side that was in the process of winning back-to-back league titles in 2003 and 2004. A team who a year prior had the young Celtics legend Shinsuke Nakamura amongst the ranks. And the current roster they had at the time had two defenders that would go on to represent Japan at the 2006 World Cup. This was a team at the height of their powers. And 11 days before Christmas in 2003, the Blue Lock team from Funabashi Municipal High School would have to play the Real Madrid of Japan, with a chance of advancing and perhaps competing in Asia's Champions League on the line. And on a sunny day in Tokyo, in front of 7,887 spectators, one of the greatest David vs. Goliath matches ever played in professional sports kicked off. And it didn't take long for the champions to announce themselves. Just 3 minutes into the match, a single lofted through ball split the high school center backs, and a striker for the Marinos was in and rounding the keeper. Luckily for Funabashi, a young Yuya Saito was in net that day. Now remember when I said that half this high school roster would go on and play professional? Well, Yuya was one of them, and still plays professionally to this day. The young keeper was quick off his line and forced the striker just wide enough to close off an angle toward net. The striker then cut back and left Yuya on the grass as he took a touch inside and fired off a shot. The defender closed down that shot, deflecting the ball up into the air and towards the back post, where it found the head of another Marinos player, who drove it on target, but lightly enough to give Saito enough time to recover and parry the shot out for a corner. They had avoided instant calamity, but the danger wasn't over yet. And with a short corner routine that had a Yokohama player deliver a quality cross into the box, which found a free runner, hitting the ball down into the ground toward net. Yuya Saito did well enough to react and dig the ball out, but this time, his parry would fall right into the path of a Yokohama striker, Satoru Usanaga, a player who had represented Japan at the Olympics, and given the opportunity, pounced, lifting the ball over the leg of the young keeper. And just 4 minutes into the game, the champions were up 1-0. It was an opening salvo that told the high schoolers what they were up against. These were the champions of Japan, players who could compete on the world stage, and they were not going to take it easy on a bunch of upstart brats. And they weren't done. Not even a minute after the restart, yet another long ball over the top cut the right back of Funabashi sleeping, and just like that, the winger was in. The high schooler had no choice but to pull the winger back, earning himself a yellow card and a set-piece opportunity for Yokohama. And if you know anything about Japanese football, dead ball deliveries are kind of their specialty. And with the driven ball toward the top of the box, a Yokohama player was first to get there, glancing a header that looped into the path of an unmarked Ryuji Kawai, who was a center back by trade, but you wouldn't have guessed it by his finish, as he took it first time, guiding it with power and precision into the bottom corner of the net. And with barely 6 minutes gone, the champs were up 2-0, and the rout was on. It looked exactly how you would imagine a pro team playing a bunch of high schoolers would look like. A slaughter, and Yokohama could smell blood in the water. At this point, it would have been easy for these plucky young high schoolers to give up, except the simple fact the J League champions were the better team and take their pummeling like young men. No one would have thought lesser of them, and many would have congratulated them anyway for making it this far. But that's another thing you probably know about the Japanese. Historically, they aren't really known for giving up easily. In fact, the young high schoolers' spirits were high. A Dutch-Japanese player for Funabashi High, who would go on to represent Japan at the under-20 level, spoke about that day. We were thinking we were going to lose 10-0 or something, so we were just thinking, enjoy this experience and feel the great atmosphere. And with that attitude, the boys of Funabashi, made their intentions known in the 15th minute, when a loose pass by a Yokohama player was intercepted in the midfield, and a single through ball later played a Funabashi striker in 1-on-1 on net. The kid ran a bit wide before crossing it into the chest of another attacker, who attempted to poke it past the on-rushing Yokohama keeper. Unfortunately, the on-rushing keeper was enough to throw the young striker off, rushing his shot, sending the ball harmlessly over the bar. It was a huge chance squandered by the high schoolers, who knew their opportunities would be few against their far superior opponents. But it also served as a wake-up call to the champs, that maybe they should stop playing with their food and put these kids out of their misery. And that's exactly what they did. In the 19th minute, they won another corner. And with another set-piece opportunity, Yokohama were again dominant in the air, hitting the ball down into the far corner of the net, where it was tapped in by an arriving teammate. 3-0 game. There was no coming back from this. But then, a whistle, followed by a reprieve. The player who had steered the ball in was offside, so it was no goal. A slight lifeline, but not much more, as Yokohama continued to pour on the pressure, creating chance after chance, testing the high school keeper at every opportunity. Something had to change. And not even waiting for halftime, at the 40th minute, the coach of Funabashi, Yusuyuki Ishiwata, took off a midfielder and added a defender to the formation, essentially playing a 5-2-3 for the rest of the match. But right at halftime, Yokohama would win yet another dead ball opportunity. The young high school defenders had not been able to deal with the bigger and stronger J-League players all game, and this was no exception. A brilliantly delivered ball into the box found the head of a Marino center back, guiding it on to net, but the young Yuya Saito went full Superman, flying through the air, and got his fingertips to the ball, just enough to deflect it onto the crossbar and back into play. But once again, Yuya Saito was unlucky as the ball fell into the path of the initial goal scorer, Satoru Yasunaga. And much like how he opened the scoring, Satoru took the opportunity well, steering the ball on net and past the hapless keeper, only for it to be cleared off the line at the last second by a recovering Funabashi defender. And with that, the kids had made it to halftime with the scoreline only 2-0. Now there's a saying in football, and that is that 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline because it causes a false sense of security. And often, if the trailing team can score one, the leading team might panic and concede a second, or even a third. But I don't think it was possible for Yokohama to be overconfident. If they didn't believe that they could beat a high school team, they had no business playing professionally. They had severely pummeled the young boys in the first 45, and if not for some lucky bounces and a couple of whistles, the champs could have easily been up 4-0. And the second half didn't start much better for the high schoolers, as Funabashi defender Tatsuya Matsushima was booked not even 2 minutes after the restart. Tatsuya was actually one of those prodigy players on this team, and would go on to represent Japan at the under-20 level, and also play professionally, even winning the J-League during his pro career. He was easily Funabashi's best defender, and he would have to play the rest of the game on a yellow. Not ideal. Worse yet, for his trouble, he had given away yet another dead ball opportunity, and Yokohama took advantage. They presented another brilliant delivery that found the head of a free runner at the back post, but it was a miss hit, the ball flying wide. Even then, the pressure was unrelenting, with Yokohama continuing to dominate the game, creating chance after chance. But then, in the 66th minute, a cross into the box would find Norihisa Shimizu, who had the ball right inside of the far post. Once again, Yuya Saito would play hero, laying out and scrambling it out for a corner. A corner that would lead to a far less flattering moment for the keeper. As he scrambled to punch the corner away, he would fall short, flailing haplessly at the ball, and maybe this pathetic display distracted the Yokohama player just enough to put him off target. Save for that one flashpoint in the first half, it had been all Yokohama so far, and it seemed like it was going to be that way till the end of the game. But in the 68th minute, Funabashi were able to win a free kick about 40 yards away from goal. Now it was finally their opportunity to show the champs what they could do from a set piece. Shuto Suzuki stepped up to swing the ball in, and as the ball curled in toward the box, it became apparent that this rare opportunity had been wasted. The ball sailed way beyond its intended targets in the box, and the keeper, Kenichi Shimokawa, who earlier that year had been a call-up for the Japanese national team, easily read the trajectory of the ball, jumped up, and claimed it with his two hands, only for it to clang off of his gloves and drop to the grass. Chance ball. A moment of chaos, and it was a Funabashi player who reacted first, poking the ball away from Kenichi and into the path of the defender on a yellow card. Tatsuya Matsushima went for pure power and blasted the ball into the net from 3 yards out. And it was a moment, to say the least. You could just see how much it meant to these young high schoolers. They had done it. They had actually scored a goal against the champions of Japan. It was the most freak accident bullshit goal probably in their lifetime, but fuck it. They all count. And no one could take that away from them. They would have this story for the rest of their lives. And for the keeper, Shimokawa, it was an absolutely devastating moment for a national team caliber keeper. And remember what I said about that 2-0 scoreline? Well, the high schoolers had achieved step one. And now with the added pressure of being embarrassed by a bunch of high schoolers seeping into the minds of the Yokohama players, the J-League champions started to play a little strained. In the 79th minute, a Funabashi midfielder transformed into a prime David Beckham and pinged a perfectly weighted 60-yard crossfield pass right into the path of a streaking Toro Kotobuki, who took a touch inside, losing his marker and setting up a shot 1v1 with the keeper. He hit it low and hard, right between the legs of Shimokawa, but the Japanese international didn't want to be embarrassed a second time, reacting quickly enough with his left leg to parry the shot wide. It was golden opportunity after golden opportunity squandered by both teams in this game. And it wouldn't be the last, as in the 83rd minute, a sloppy throw-in by Yokohama led to a Funabashi interception and the ball played forward up to Robert Cullen, one of the Blue Lock prodigy players on this team. He picked up the ball about 15 yards deep in his own half and started a counter, if you can call it that, because it was 2-on-4. He was accompanied by fellow attacker Kota Tanaka, who darted inside of Robert as Robert marauded his way to the left, taking 3 defenders with him. Nearing the top of the box, Robert dekes inside and then pushes the ball forward past the last defender. Shields off the defender behind him and dropped his shoulder and took one more touch to catch the defender asleep for a split second. Enough to create a small sliver of space to deliver a low-driven cross into the box and find an unmarked Toto Tanaka for an easy tap-in. Be it a lapse in concentration or just plain tired legs, the champions had fallen asleep at the back and paid the price as the more determined Robert Cullen had somehow wriggled away from 3 J-League caliber defenders to find his teammate Tanaka, who had wisely stayed behind the ball and floated into the danger zone. And for an inexplicable reason, no one decided to track him into the box until it was far too late. There's no denying it now. The champions had severely underestimated the high schoolers, and the curse of the 2-1 scoreline had proven true once again, one of the most bizarre matches in professional sports history. The high schoolers had done it. They had come all the way back on the champs, and you could see the coach of Funabashi getting about as hyped as an old Japanese man can get, while the coach of Yokohama just sat there in stunned disbelief. But this was the end of the fairy tale, right? Surely they couldn't go on to win the thing, right? 85th minute. The Funabashi winger takes the touch inside and fires a pass forward toward Robert Cullen, but with way too much power. Cullen tries to collect the ball, but has too much fizz on it, and he's only able to graze it, deflecting it with the side of his boot. As the ball moves beyond him, the substitute Toro Kotobuki gambled, making a curved but incisive run that found him onside, one-on-one with the keeper. Kotobuki didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the ball, and with the keeper quickly closing him down, Kotobuki struck the ball across his body back toward the net. It looked on target, but it hit the torso of Shimakawa. The ball hung up in the air in what felt like an eternity, and as it began to drift back down toward the net, it would hit the crossbar and loop over out of play. The substitute had just come inches away from the greatest heist in Japanese history. He had almost become the hero. But almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And in the 88th minute, a throw in deep in enemy territory had the number 19 of Yokohama roll a high school defender off of him and set himself up pretty much 1v1 with the keeper inside the box. Yuya Saito closed him down and got a piece of the shot. And for the 3rd time in the match, Saito found himself unlucky, with the ball rolling literally to the feet of Yokohama's number 7. But in another turn of inexplicable luck, the Yokohama player couldn't react in time, and the ball literally squirts through his feet and goes out for a harmless goal kick. If there was a hallmark of this game, it was mismade your chances. And the way it was going to come down to who could seize the moment. 4 minutes later, in the 89th minute, Funabashi's goal scorer, Tatsuya Matsushima, would make a brilliant lunging tackle, cleanly taking the ball off the attacker and starting to run forward toward the halfway line. When all of a sudden, he's taken down from behind. Matsushima rolls over and looks up at the ref to see him pull out a yellow card. But not for the Yokohama player. No. He was the one being booked for simulation. And with that being his 2nd yellow card, Funabashi's best defender was sent off. And they would have to finish the match down to 10 men. And that's pretty much how regulation ended. And in the Emperor's Cup, if you're tied at the end of regulation, you go to 2 periods of extra time. Surely, this was where the champions would take over. The first period of extra time begins, and both teams muster a couple of half chances, the closest being a Yokohama fullback shot that nearly found the top corner of the net from an extremely acute angle. But Funabashi would respond with a brilliant counter, finding space unmarked on the wing. All the Funabashi winger had to do was look up and find his teammate completely unmarked at the back post. But instead, he got it all wrong, skying it way long. And that's pretty much how the first period of extra time would end. Into the second portion of extra time, it seemed like Yokohama kept winning free kick after free kick. And with them establishing air superiority all game long, they finally got another prize. As in the 113th minute, a looping ball into the box found the head of Marino's player, who glanced it past the keeper and into the path of a teammate for a tap-in. Game. But once again, the whistle would come to the high schooler's defense. A foul had been called on the Marino's player for elbowing the keeper while he was going up for the ball. And with that, it was another lifeline for Funabashi. At this point, the high schoolers were pretty much playing for pens, so they sat back and invited wave after wave of pressure from the champions, who happily obliged. But time and time again, the high school team denied them of that 3rd goal that the champions had been chasing since the 6th minute. Even down to 10 men, they held through 2 periods of extra time, and somehow, some way, were taking the champs to penalties. And when you take any team to penalties, things can get a little weird. It's no longer about who has more talent, who has better tactics, who has more ability. When it comes to pens, it's pretty much down to guts and a bit of luck. Anything can happen. And with that, the first two stepped up from each team, and they both buried it. Now the second two. The Yokohama player finishes confidently, and then it's down to the number 14, who opens up his body and tries to shape the ball around the Yokohama keeper. But Shimakawa read it and caught it easily. The next Yokohama player wrongsides Yuta for an easy finish, and now all the pressure is on the high schooler, who needs to convert, or they're going to go 2 down for the second time in this game. A defender steps up for Funabashi and hits an accurate ball toward the corner. But once again, Shimakawa is quick off his line, reads it well, and parries it away. And just like that, it's do or die. Yuya Saito needed to save this pen, or midnight will strike on their Cinderella run. And so, the number 17 of Yokohama stepped up and goes with power. Perhaps a little bit too much power, as the ball lifts above the outstretched arms of Yuya Saito and hits the crossbar and bounces inside the net. And that was it. The champions had escaped, moving on to the next round, which they would win before being eliminated in the quarterfinals. But the true victors on the day was a little high school team from the east coast of Japan that went toe-to-toe with the champions of their nation and came back from 2-0 down. Nearly won the game in regulation, then survived 2 periods of extra time down to 10 men. And by doing so, perhaps might have proved that the absurd feats that we see the high schoolers accomplish in Blue Lock might actually not be so unbelievable after all. And that is going to be it for my video on when a group of high schoolers went and embarrassed the champions of their home nation. If you did enjoy, go ahead and smush your hard nipple into that like button right now. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you to Lewis for helping me edit this video. Thank you to all the patrons keeping me alive and well. And yeah, I got more videos coming out for you guys soon. But until then, it's the Fat Asian signing off.